Good morning, CLC. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this service. We welcome you. We hope you're having a wonderful day, and we hope we can help you have a wonderful week ahead. Now, I invite you to just relax in this moment. Put your day and your week aside. Take a few deep breaths. And as you breathe out, just let all tension just release out of your body. Anything you may be thinking about, just let it go for now. Allow your body and your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal wisdom inspires me. Universal spirit enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your right hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me. Sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems, while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of the infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. In visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass, in seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought fulfilled and gratefully speak these words, I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release.
I release.
Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in the room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude and saying, I'm grateful for the good in your life.
Good morning. How are you? I played hooky last week, but I came in the afternoon for the memorial service. And I want to thank all of you who participated in that. And I especially want to thank these two, and Mary and Jeffrey, and Mel T, and all the musicians. We had a cast of thousands. The thing went on almost 3 hours. It was fantastic. And in case you didn't know, because we didn't film it live, it was on Zoom for the families and selected people. We ended with the time warp. This is the first, do you know what the time warp is? It's just to jump to the left. No. I have never been part of a memorial service that ended with the time warp, but if you knew the two we were memorializing, you get it. So, and a magnificent talk was delivered on this stage at 11 o'clock last Sunday morning by Danielle Mercadal. Thank you so much. And the two of you are like, I mean, I'm watching this, and you said this, and Lisa said this, and it's like, you know, Jesse gives us permission to get up here and do this. I beg you to do this, okay? It's not like permission. It's just you are terrific. Danielle spoke last week about seed planting, and today I'm going to follow that with some rain. I'm going to rain on your parade. As you put the seeds in the ground, and there's some rain, there's some sunshine, there's some maybe plant food, you know, there are other steps to take to grow. The whole thing, of course, is a metaphor from beginning to end of how spiritual practice works. Spiritual practice is both beautiful and functional, just like plants are, just like flowers are. You remember your first experience of, let's say, flowers as a little kid was they were pretty and they were nice and they smelled good. And then you learned that they were pretty and nice and smelled good because they attracted bees and other insects to pollinate them, which caused there to be more flowers. In other words, it was a very functional kind of thing. And maybe you were a little let down by that. And it was like, oh, I thought they were all here for me. When in fact, they're here for themselves. They're here to propagate themselves, you know. Well, spiritual practice is very much the same way, because all of the stuff that we talk about here, or that you hear in any spiritual center, where they're considering things like forgiveness and letting go of the past, and today I'm going to focus a lot on praise. You know, he said, well, that sounds lovely, that sounds noble, that sounds virtuous, and it is all those things, but it's also functional. It's also functional. When you do your spiritual work inside, you're helping the organism that is life. You're helping the whole thing move more easily and gracefully along. You're greasing the skids. That's an expression my grandmother used to use. You're greasing the skids under the thing by your own choice, by your own spiritual dimension. When I forgive, it's better for me. I become a better citizen. I become a nicer person. the whole of life is lifted up somewhat. Okay? If I take better care of myself, then somebody else doesn't have to take care of me. That frees them up to take better care of themselves. The whole thing moves along. All of this, love, unconditional love, conditional love, whatever kind of love you're talking about, is very functional as well as poetic and pretty. Love is what holds the whole thing together. Love is what holds the atomic structure of everything together. Love is what causes the cosmic soup, you know, to congeal into forms and planets peopled with living things and all the rest of this. So we're working on two levels at once, and this was where I ended my part of this a couple of weeks ago, was that there's the universal and the particular. And certain things are true in the universal, or as it's sometimes called, the absolute, and certain things are true in the particular, or as it's sometimes called, the relative. The relative is the microcosm of the macrocosm that is the absolute. That's a fancy way of saying that God is all there is, and meanwhile, here you are, and here I am, as individualized expressions of it, learning from it, drawing from it, and passing its wisdom, passing its intelligence into form in a specific way in our lives. And so in spiritual practice, we learn to be better humans. We also learn to be better organizers of the divine patterning intelligence, as Ernest Holmes puts it, okay? You with me so far? All right. We're working this month out of a book called High Mysticism by Emma Curtis Hopkins, the great teacher of teachers. And I printed out some stuff from her that has to do with praise, and that's really the topic today, is giving praise. Do you give praise? Do you like to give praise? I love to give praise. I'd rather give praise than get it. It's like Christmas. You know, time comes, or whenever your holiday season is, time comes when you're a little kid and it's all about, ooh, what did they get me? And it's under the tree. And I remember one time when I was like 4, I went down to the tree and I dug out all the packages. Must have been before I was 4. I couldn't read yet. Or maybe I could and I just didn't bother. And I opened everything. I opened everything. Rotten little kid, right? Well, the next Christmas came and they got me presents anyway. The Christmas after that, you know. And then the time came where if I wanted something bad enough, I'd go get it myself. And so it wasn't about waiting for somebody to do for me. It became about hearing what others said in July. Oh, you get major points for this. Hear what others say in July and remember it when comes time for it. Gee, I wish I had a, throwaway comment, catch it, and then, well, see, we move from the self-centeredness of things out into a greater expansive mechanism. Same with praise. When maybe you're little or not so little bit insecure, it's tell me I'm all right, tell me all right, give me some approval. Ellen DeGeneres brought this up on her show one time. She said, I seek approval so much. She says, I'm trying to break myself of the habit. I'm wearing the patch. We seek approval until we don't. And then the fun begins, because then it's about giving approval. Then it's about giving acknowledgement. And it's seeking people out. Not the people who expect it from you, not the people necessarily just in the formal relationships of things, but have you ever transacted with somebody out in the world and just, if you haven't, you try this. You go in a store or something, and somebody's doing something. Just tell them, you're good at that. You're good at that. And you don't want anything from them. And if money changes hands, that's happening separately, but they'll stand up straighter. And that's, they'll just feel better about themselves. Yeah, nice car at the gas station. Say to the person, it doesn't matter if it's a nice car. It doesn't matter what kind of car it is, oh, that's a nice car. Do you like that car? That's a beautiful car you got there. Just, well, they feel like vindicated in their choices and stuff. Now, these are small and kind of silly things, but most of the work is done within. You don't even have to express the praise verbally to have it work. That's the power of consciousness. You bless the world and praise it. What you praise expands. Look for the good and praise it. Look for the good and praise it. That was one of the slogans that I heard when 47 years or whenever it was ago, when I first came into religious science. That was one of the slogans, first slogans I heard, was look for the good and praise it. And this was like completely dumbfounding to me, because what I had been taught by the culture to do was look for the problem and condemn it. Look for the problem and point it out and draw a crowd to observe the problem. And this is said, look for the good and praise it. When you start looking for the good starts looking for you. It starts showing up and you praise it and it expands, and now it flourishes over here and it grows over there. And this is how we come back to the gardening metaphor. This is how you plant seeds in mind, and you water them with emotion. You water them with emotion. The rain is your tears. The rain is your emotional investment. This is really the key to changing things in your life or changing things in the world's life. Is, yeah, you notice there's a problem, or you notice there's something that could be better, and you picture it being better, and you use your hands to make it better, and your feet, you know. But mostly, you use your imagination, and you picture it as though it were already so. And you live in that picture with your emotions of the kind of world you want to live in. A world that's, well, what kind of world? I don't want to tell you what kind of world to live in. What kind of world do you want to live in? You know, I think of like peaceful, happy, harmonious, creative, exciting, interesting, helpful, collaborative, that kind of world, you know? And so I start imagining that I'm already in that kind of world. And all of a sudden, pieces of that world start to make their way into this world. And they edge out parts of this world that don't really work. They kind of fall off the end of the bench, you know? This new reality begins to take over, and you surround yourself with amazing people who have wonderful creative ideas, and you're happy and harmonious, and this is how it begins to expand. But it starts with giving it permission to happen, being willing to have it happen, and being willing to put your emotional investment on the side of it happening, which is exactly what we were not taught. We were taught, you know, as I said, to put the emotional energy on the problem. And when you pray the problem, which is what putting the emotional energy on the side of the problem is, when you pray the problem, the great subjective, the great subconscious, the great law, brings you more of the same. Happily, obediently, even cheerfully, annoyingly cheerfully, it brings you more of the same. It says, oh, here's what you've been focusing on. You must want this. And you're like, no, I don't want this. But it's what you've been focusing on. And the law, if it weren't a law, but it were like a helpful, you know, person, would tell you, well then, what you need to do is this. So instead it has me telling, has Danielle telling, Lisa, David, Marcia, everybody who teaches here and everybody who teaches this stuff anywhere, it has all of us doing it, saying, no, put your energy on the side of that which you wish to create. And this is easily done if you think of it as praise. If you think of it as praise. Praise actually, you know, if we talk about forgiveness, and of course around Thanksgiving and leading up to that, we typically do. It's even in the curriculum, some of the classes that we have that fall that way, you know. Forgiveness, you mention forgiveness, the room gets real quiet. Everybody's kind of like this, you know, oh, forgiveness. We think about the people we need to forgive, and then we think about what we need to be forgiven of by the other people, and kind of the air goes out of the room, you know. It's kind of heavy. What if we were to move past forgiveness to the place of forgiveness having been granted already by our fellow humans, that would look like praise. That would look like acknowledgement. Many forms of praise. Acknowledgement, recognition, naming, all of these things. Description she mentions in the book. She's got 3 or 4 of them, Emma does, in High Mysticism. Description is a form of praise. Listening is a form of praise. Asking questions is a form of praise, and there's a class coming up on that. You think, well, I've been asking questions my whole life. This is about conscious, intelligent question asking, okay? In a way that elicits, not that you've been doing it wrong, but in a way that elicits answers through active listening. This is a form of praise as well. You have my full attention. That's a form of praise. And it establishes an attitude of forgiveness having been granted without having to necessarily dwell as much in the process of figuring out what has to be forgiven, who has to be forgiven, or how much we have to forgive ourselves. Because you see, the whole business of forgiveness happens at the relative level, not one iota of it at the absolute level. And this confounds a lot of what we've been taught. You and I have real similar hand gestures. Did you notice that? I'm watching, and she's like, and I'm thinking, did I get that from her? Did she get that from me? Or what are we doing, you know? Okay, do you understand what I mean by this? The absolute and the relative. See, at the absolute level, nobody's ever needed forgiveness because nobody's ever been judged. But down here on the earth plane at the relative level, that's where the judgment's gone on. That's where the hurt feelings have happened. That's where the miscommunication has been done. And that's where all the work has to take place. But the moment you call yourself free, the moment you call yourself free and buy it with your heart, you're free. That's what this theology says. There's not a God up in the sky who's keeping a close record, close tabs on every mistake you make, so that at the end of it, when the final whistle blows, you know, you can be called to account for all of this stuff and made to repent or get sent back here or whatever. No, that's not how it works in this teaching. In this teaching, all there is grace, and all there is love, and all there is power, unless we clog up the works down here on the earth plane by deciding that I can't like you anymore because of this, and you probably don't like me, and we have all kinds of issues between us. And so Scripture talks about this as seeking out many inventions. We have sought out many inventions. Inventions that many times don't work. Many times we jockey for position, you know what I mean, in life. We have a pecking order. We have a hierarchy of stuff. Sweep all of that aside, and all there is the great I am. Let us boldly acknowledge, says Emma Hopkins, as we lift up our eyes unto the deliverer, the limitless, because thou art the unconditioned and absolute, I also am unconditioned and absolute. Because thou art the free, I also am free. Because thou art the self-existent, I also am self-existent. What is true at the level of the macrocosm is true at the level of the microcosm. Here's the kicker. We have to accept it at the level of the microcosm. This gets into a whole other long story of what are we doing here? Why are we even here? Why did we incarnate in this world? Well, you have your opinion, I have mine, but you get right down to cases. It's that I have the capacity in this world to judge. I have the capacity in this world to nitpick. I can reason either deductively as the one, as the great I am, or reason inductively as a separate and therefore probably lonely entity out on an iceberg. I can get suspicious and weird about other people. I have the ability to do all of this because I'm a free agent. At the level of the one, there's just the I am. It's limitless, it's infinite. There's a lot of stuff about infinity we don't understand. That's why they call it infinity, you know? It's like bigger than you can wrap your mind around. But a lot of the things, okay, everything that's true about local, personal, non-infinite life is not true about infinity. It's not limited. Infinity isn't. It's not limited. Eternity isn't. But personality and mortality, in the sense that we have a fixed lifespan on this planet, has certain ingrained, inbuilt, I guess, limitations to it that we freak out over. Here's one: aging. Okay? Aging. And I don't mean just like getting old as we describe things in Earth years. I heard a great line on TV. It says, age is just a number and mine is unlisted. But I'm talking about every stage of life that we go through. We're no longer where we were, and memories accumulate, and we wish for how things used to be. And we're coming into that season of the year where there are a lot of triggers for this because there are holidays and stuff, which reminds me, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to our Canadian friends. It's tomorrow, and we have a fair number of people, who watch in Canada. And so happy Thanksgiving to you. And the ages of the world. The ages of the world pass, and we mourn them, and we interpret them, and we color them in ways that make us feel better about ourselves. And I bring that up because tomorrow is Indigenous Peoples Day. And one thing to realize is that we're all indigenous. Everybody's from someplace. Our people are from someplace. And we made our way here. Now maybe you're from right here, like right on this spot. I doubt it. Met some people who grew up in the neighborhood, you know, right here. Who was here before we were? Well, the guy we bought the property from, the people he bought it from. But you go far enough back, and there's a group called the Orcoqueza Band. The Orcoqueza Band, who were later adopted into the Caddo Nation. And those are the people who were on this property. Were they directly under the floor where I'm standing? I don't know. But they were in the area. They were in the neighborhood. And their energy is still here, as that of all the ancestors. And as we come into the end of the month and the time that we call in this culture Halloween, but was known in an earlier time in a different culture as Samhain, is time for the ancestors. We turn them into ghosts, you know, we turn them into and zombies and flesh-eating things and all this. Why? Because it's, I don't know, it gets the heart pounding and all of this. But that's not who they are. They're part of the big system that planted you here. Their blood runs in your veins and my veins. Okay? There's an unbroken stream of consciousness in the human family going all the way back to the time we evolved from ferns and fungi, which we actually did. Took a grand long time. But eventually we developed the capacity for reflective self-awareness through a complex enough neural network, and booted up in consciousness and looked around and said, hey, I can judge now. That's great. I can name things and I can sort them into categories and all the rest of this. And off we went, building a civilization on this earth. And we decided we could sort people into categories and into denominations and into layers of value. And if we didn't value them enough, we could take what they had and justify it. Go through our sacred scriptures and find some passage or other that justified it, you know? Okay? And then we wonder why there's kind of this sickness in the heart whenever we think about forgiveness. It's like, my God, how much do I have to do? How much do I have to atone for my ancestors? When you go to God, where nothing has ever been wrong, all it says to you is, I am. All it says to you is, I am. All it says about you is, I am. No debt is held against you. Down here on the ground, We got bills to pay. We got reparations to make. We've got apologies to give. But if you want to do that without feeling like your heart is being cut out of your chest, go to God. Go to the source that tells you you're all right. That understands that whatever was done, as Emma puts it, and all of us stub our toe on, or worse, when we read it the first time. All evil done in the name of good. All evil done by somebody believing that they had to do what they had to do to get what they didn't have or keep what they might lose. Okay? Does this let everybody off the hook? Nope. Because everybody's working cause and effect in their own way. And everybody who now knows better, who does better, is liberated. And everybody who now knows better and does not do better is corrected. Corrected. Not punished, may look like punishment, but corrected by spiritual law. Religion did not invent the idea of the wholeness of the self. Religion caught a glimpse of the wholeness of the self and started to tell a story about it. The wholeness of the self has always been there. If religion did not exist, if the sacred writings did not exist, the wholeness of the self is the absolute truth of the self. And then we as humans, we try to figure stuff out. Okay? I think I'll wrap up with this. The Hopi Indian praises the great power that shines behind the sun. This is Emma again. The Parsi praises that would be Persian. The Parsi praises the great power whose shining creates the sun. We praise the great free spirit that stands back of our mind, which mind was once to us the sun of our life. We praise the free spirit that knows beyond the mind, which is saying ever, I am God, I am truth, I am light. There is a consciousness of cold. There is a consciousness of heat. There is a consciousness of stinging. Stinging like a bee, you know. This is how her mind works. See, I wouldn't have thought that. Heat, cold, I wouldn't put stinging there. She put stinging there. She's a creative writer, you know. There's a consciousness of falling, arising. So there is a consciousness of God. He who has the consciousness of God knows beyond his mind and wakes to a new kind of body, in tune with the infinite immortal, the Lord Supreme. Nicholas of Basel, she drops names. And you have to go look these people up. Nicholas of Basel once had this consciousness transcending his mind suddenly spring forth through all his being, and he found himself for a moment one with the origin of knowing, and he said strange things beyond his previous concepts. Why I bring that up to you is that's a description of the mystical experience right there. You want to know where the high mysticism comes in her book? Boom, right there. Nicholas of Basel, okay? Had this consciousness transcending his mind suddenly spring forth through all his being. In other words, Nicholas is thinking about some high and holy things, and all of a sudden he embodies them. And he finds himself for a moment one with the origin of knowing. In other words, he's outside of his own mind. He's outside of his own body of knowledge. He's one with the origin of knowing. He has seen into the great absolute. And then it says, and he said strange things beyond his previous concepts. This is what people right on the cusp of the mystical experience do. They say strange things. They write strange things. They write poems that don't make any sense. They're gazing into infinity. And they come back and they're very disturbing. They're very disturbing to the culture, which wishes they'd be quiet and go away, because they are breaking us out of the repetitive ritual and the exoteric kind of droning on of things, you know. They have seen this. They have seen into the infinite. Like I've told you before, this friend of mine, minister years ago, had this great saying, built a talk around it, gave the talk all over the country. He said, 2 doors. One marked heaven, the other marked lecture on heaven. Which door do you open? Right? The lecture of heaven is more information, more putting the plan on the board, you know, this kind of thing. Heaven is disruptive very much to the self. Praise and command of the divine self of our self always wakes the consciousness of our own superiority to environing disadvantages and ignorances. Our superiority to environing disadvantages. In other words, that's her 19th century way of saying that you are more powerful than your problems. You're more powerful than your environment, than your genetics, than anything that could get in the way. We work collaboratively with our bodies. We work collaboratively with our culture, but there is something within you that is infinite, timeless, limitless, unconquerable. Unconquerable. And this is your season of harvest. I'm knowing this for each of us. They overlap in a different hemisphere. It's springtime now, but for us here, let's call this our season of harvest. We're planting the seeds. We're watering the seeds. Next week, we'll cast a little sunlight on the seeds. I'll come up with something for plant food. Then we've got Halloween, which is going to be the Halloween talk, okay, that will somehow connect to all of this, but also be a standalone piece. What I invite you to consider as you go through your week is that you are offering praise to the world. You're offering acknowledgement to the world in ways you cannot even imagine. One last thought. So I had on football briefly yesterday. I'm not one of these people. I don't want you to think I take up a whole Saturday and I just sit there and binge watch game after game. But I had it on in the background. I was doing God's work, getting ready for today, but I did have the television on. And there was a big game between Penn State and Iowa, both of them very highly ranked. And I had no favorite. I didn't care. You know, it was just on. The University of Iowa football stadium seats 80,000 people, I guess. Right smack next to it, standing yay high above it, is the University of Iowa Children's Hospital. Every home game, at the end of the first quarter, every fan, every player, every band member, everybody in that stadium turns and waves to the children and their caregivers and their families who have been prepped for this and know that it's because they got the radio on or whatever, and they know. And so they're all at the window. And here are these children with no hair, you know. Here are this gathering of people, 80,000, the opposing team, everybody waving. And they do this for a couple of minutes, and the children wave back, okay? You know how this started? Spontaneously. Nobody said, let's have a service project, wave to the sick kids. It started spontaneously. People in the stadium, there's a hospital there. It's a children's hospital, and one thing led to another, and they've been doing this now for like 5 years. Since the hospital, I guess, was finished, because it looks like a newish kind of building. I give you that because it brings tears to my eyes, but I give you that because it's an example of conscious praise. That is high and holy spiritual work right there, okay? Absolutely non-sectarian, non-denominational, whatever. High and holy spiritual work. When you turn and wave at a sick child, there is a healing energy, I kid you not, that is going out from you in some way. There is something there that is more than just a gesture of goodwill. That's how powerful we are. That's how powerful we are. So what I want to do in the coming week and beyond, and invite you to do also is find spontaneous opportunities for that kind of acknowledgement and that kind of praise giving and love that can be passed on to others in our world, because that's what we need. And with enough of that, we'll make right and healthy choices, and we'll build together heaven on earth. So in a few moments, the amazing Reverend Lisa Ryan will come up and give you a closing treatment. And thank you so much for your kind attention. All right.
Mary Radspinner, thank you so much. That was such a beautiful, reflective melody after such a powerful talk. Thank you. Thank you. As our ushers make their way to the back, I want to ask, is anyone here for the first time today? Please raise your hand if you are. Welcome, welcome. Okay, we will have packages for you guys in just a little bit. Oh, we have no packages? We have packages somewhere. We'll find packages for you guys in just a little bit with information in it. And if you are new online, please let us know, whether you put it in chat, whether you send us a message on Facebook Messenger, or even email us at info@creativelife.org. We would love to hear from you. And with that, now we come to giving time. Thank you, each and every one of you, for whatever you give. We are grateful and we appreciate it, and we praise you for everything you do for this center. If it were not for you, we would not be here. So thank you, and I invite you to say with me, divine love through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
I'm a little slow this morning. I apologize. It was the opening day of the Texas Renaissance Festival yesterday. It was a good day, but it was warm. So I have I don't know if you heard it, but Jesse gave you a homework assignment. So I'm being really explicit about the homework assignment he gave you. But I also want to add on to that, because sometimes that there are things that we need to hear that nobody is going to say to us. So I want to encourage you to say them to yourself. Please, whatever it is. Go and look in the mirror, look in your own eyes, and say whatever it is that you need to hear, especially if it comes from somebody in your family. I went and did a memorial for my aunt last Monday. And since you're talking about praise, the two things that I needed to hear, and fortunately for me, my family said them to me, was after the memorial is over, several of them came up to me and said, "You did a good job." When you're doing a memorial for a family member, that's a good thing. And they also said, "Thank you for doing that for the family." My immediate response to that was, well, of course, why wouldn't I? But it was important for me to hear that. So if there is something that you need to hear that you are not hearing, go and say it to yourself, because that is Spirit talking to you through you. All right? So please do that. And now, I'm going to gather myself together. It's been an interesting week. And I'm going to know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. And each and every one of us are a part of that love. And more importantly than that, we are a channel of that love. That love flows through us and out into the world. And so I'm knowing that each and every one of us know that love, feel that love, and recognize that it is coming from an inexhaustible source. It is coming from a well with no bottom. And it is up to us to let it flow. It is up to us to turn the faucet up. Because the more love that we let flow through us, the more love there is into the world. And the more love that there is into the world, it's going to encourage other people to turn their faucets up. Good begets good. So let us be good. Let us be love. Let us be the hands and the feet, the heart, the listening ears, the loving eyes of God. Because that is who we are. So let us know that. Let us know that we are beloved children of God. And let us look into the eyes of the other beloved children of God and know them for who they are. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. And I relax, release, and know that it is so. And so it is.
Say it with me now, something wonderful is happening through me.
Something wonderful is happening through me.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in my mind.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it.
I choose it.
I trust it.
I trust it.
I use it.
I use it.
And what else?
And I love it.
And
so it is.